How has the race ethnicity question changed over the last several censuses?
Well, it certainly has evolved, and the Hispanic question was asked to a sample of people in 1970. So that was the first time it was asked, and then it has evolved into what it is today. In the 2000 census and in the 2010 census, pretty similar. And they're essentially two questions: the Hispanic question, Hispanic yes or no, and they mark the type of Hispanic or write in, if you want. And the race question, again, one of the 5 races established by the federal government, or then the box where somebody could mark some other race and do that. And so it's all about self-identification. And going forward, we'll just have to see, what the results say, and how the government deals with that. But with Hispanics, it's very interesting. I can personally say that got lots of questions about the ethnicity question and the race question. Hispanics, understood the Hispanic question, yes or no, but with race, they got stumped. They didn't know what to put down, and I would say, well, there's no wrong answer. Mark it as you see yourself. So
that's easy.
Yeah.
Mark it as you see yourself.
Right.
Look at the people that we saw walking on New York streets, and you can understand why it's hard to answer that question. Did you get a lot of feedback about that, Erica?
Yeah, there was certainly a lot of debate around that whole question about, is this a way of diluting the power of Hispanics, or is this going to give an accurate portrait? And we're waiting for the results as well. But it's a question that's been raised. I think the question that Professor Rodriguez raised about political control and demographics, et cetera, is really key. And also the question about if there are disparities in the way federal agencies to local agencies look at this data, what is the implication in terms of policies and how a community gets served or not served? So those are the critical questions with respect to race and categorization. And then, what someone raised recently as well is in one report that I read was that, you're asking folks to be honest about who they are, and then you want to just box it into, the categories that are preset. And I think that's sort of the tension. We as a society are still in this sort of black-white dynamic, and a lot of people don't understand who Latinos are. So we come in all colors and complexities. Some Latinos are inclined to emphasize their indigenous heritage or their African heritage, et cetera. And for U.S. society, that's kind of like, you got to be in this box or that box, and that's it. But we're really complex and nuanced, and I think that this report that we're unfolding is really going to highlight a lot of that.
But when you count something, it does have to be in one box or another, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but it has to be complex.
Makes it tough to count otherwise.
Well, you have the option of marking more than, for the race question, you could mark more than one box, and that was something that started in the 2000 census. So the public, again, could mark what they want, and we'll report, how they mark.
But if you mark more than one box, can you get 45 million Americans with 90 million different racial identities?
Well, you can, and we're going to report, and we will report those combinations. That's why the census is 100 billion pieces of data, because that's a question that you can mark in multiple ways. But we're letting the public, tell us how they see themselves.
When the question changes every 10 years, or is tinkered with every 10 years, does that leave scholars, not everybody worries about public policy and scholars, but it's hard to compare things across census years when the question changes all the time.
Absolutely, there's that. But as you say, most people don't have a lot of sympathy for the tasks of scholars. I think more importantly, it creates problems for the law and compliance with the law, because if people have, for example, multiple identities that they can check, then if somebody who is Latino and black, do you put them in the category of black, or do you put them in the category of Latino? And, well, that seems like a silly question, except that the law actually wants a simple answer. They want you to be in one box, because the voting rights protections are for a particular group. They're not for coalitional seats. And so it matters to the black community if that person who's Latino and black says that they're Latino, because if enough people do that, that can diminish the number of people who call themselves black, which could potentially affect in an urban area where there are Latino and black communities abutting one another, it could affect their legal claim to protection.
And if you and I get on the train and go up to Washington Heights in Upper Manhattan, I defy you to answer that question in a way that makes any sense. But I guess also as time passes, people's sense of themselves changes. And what really is your primary identity. Does it force you, Erica, to think about yourself in ways that until you were asked that question, maybe you didn't?
Right, and it also this notion of does there have to be a primary identity? You know, so you know, when I answered a question, for example, you know, I mean, Puerto Ricans, by our heritage, we're mixed. You know, we have African heritage, we have European heritage, not necessarily Spanish either, and an indigenous. So you know, it's like, how do you know? We automatically come with that mixture. So how do you sort of, you know, preference one or the other? You know, but if you look at the collective experience within, let's say, for New York, for example, or Philadelphia, it's been, despite the racial classifications, it's been one of a community that's had to fight for representation, for its rights, et cetera. So the experience is what binds us. So looking at experience of a group and racial classifications, I think, is going to be an area, you know, looking at where those things kind of intersect as we have these shifting concepts of identity, is going to sort of force us to re-examine, you know, which groups need to be served in specific ways.